show where we have our special guest interview. Here at the IFAN podcast, we've been fortunate enough to have a few rather well-known figures in and out of the hockey world, but we also feel it's important to get perspectives of your regular average day fans, just like me and Steve are, particularly season ticket holders. So that leads us to our guest today, our man in the stands, good friend to the show, Joe Lucatorto. Joe, thanks for taking the time out today and coming on the podcast.
Thanks, Ray. Super excited, man. I'm thrilled that you guys are doing this, and there's always a need to get your voice out there, right? Whether it's you got a lot of passionate people, and it's terrific. You guys are putting this together to give people that platform to talk.
All right, thanks, Joe. And who knows? Maybe your life will be changed by this. It may never be the same.
I hope not for the worse.
We shall see.
Yes.
So Joe, give us a little bit of background on you as a fan. I know you're a season ticket holder, and a little bit about your journey as a fan, so the folks can get know a little bit about you.
Yeah, I love it. Thanks, Ray. Now, to me, you can almost parallel the journey with the Islanders with family. To me, it's like it's been a family experience, and like a lot of guys growing up on Long Island, you go in and out of the team a little bit, but from a like a family perspective, I was lucky enough to have a dad that took me to games in the early 80s. Matter of fact, my first game was in 1980. He had a friend from work that had season tickets that gave him a certain amount of games, and all through the Stanley Cup years, I went to a playoff game that year and versus the Bruins in the second round as a 10-year-old, right? So that's like really impactful stuff.
Great series, right?
Yeah, your dad, your dad taking you there, and so that's where it began. That's sort of like the first phase. The next phase, I'd say, is like the cousins phase, right? Where you're younger, you're getting, you're through school. Some of us were living in Florida, some of us were up here on the island, but those early 90s teams, we were like super into those years, and Ray Ferraro, Pierre Turgeon, who's still my favorite player, just the dynamic nature. It was just an exciting time, I think, at that time.
Great team, could have gone further, but yep, absolutely.
Yeah, so many players in that sort of era. And then that Cousins timeline took us into the early 2000s with the the Sean Bates, the Mark Parrish, the Jason Blake, the Steve Webb, right? That was like at a time in my life where like Steve Webb was sort of symbolic of what's going on in your life, right? You're a young guy, you're smashing into things, you're doing a lot of things, and I was able to do that with my cousins. But then you get older and you start a family, and then from there I had 3 kids, but I wanted to do the same for my kids like my father did for me. So in the mid 90s I became a season ticket holder, section 319, like up in the corner. And my 2 younger kids, I would take to the games, and I would want them so badly, and they really were not interested. But so it's like you're just like with instruments. I know you're a big music guy as well. I bought drums and I bought guitars and I put stuff, and you want them to sort of pick it up and get into it, like it never took off. But then that leads me to the sort of the last phase, which is I got a call that I would never think I would have received, which was from my mother in like 2020. Who I think I live in Floral Park. I grew up in Floral Park. I'm a mile from ubsarena. My mother still lives in town, and I get a call from her that says, "Hey, I have an idea. What do you think about this idea? Maybe I should buy 3 season tickets for the Islanders for me, you, and my youngest son, Miles." And I'm like, yeah, I think this is a really good idea. Like this is one of the best ideas you've ever had. And then like so 4 years, right? When my youngest started this, he was in 9th grade. He's graduating high school now. And one of the things I never, ever would have thought on my lifetime bingo card was going to over 100 hockey games with your mother. With my with my son, maybe, I would have, yeah, that's a good. but over 100 hockey games. So anyway, that's my story. Family, lots of different experiences, and really just love the team and love going to these games.
It's pretty cool. That's a pretty cool background. Everybody has their journey, right, with the team. So that's why it's always interesting to ask anybody who's a fan. Um, so mid '90s, huh? So you've gone to a lot of games as a season ticket holder. You've seen a lot of ups and downs. I'm not sure when you started as a season ticket holder, but if it was during the Fisherman days, it was probably very interesting, tumultuous time to be at a game at all the all the home games. But kind of fast forward into this season.
Yeah.
Really a lot of ups and downs just in this first half of the season alone, and that's been really like on the forefront of most of the fans we've been talking to. So so why don't you give us your take on this season so far? It started out kind of slow. It showed a little promise. There's a lot of things happening behind the scenes with free agencies, guys possibly leaving. What's it look like to you as a guy who's going to pretty much every game? And what are you hearing from the season ticket community of people that you're sitting around?
Yeah, great. You're right. Great folks around us, and you get into a lot of conversations and sort of shooting the breeze. But what I could tell you from my perspective is that I think more so than changing out players, or to me, it's like they need a psychiatrist more than they need, or maybe a conditioning coach, right? But probably I would lead with psychiatrist first. And what I mean by that is that you can watch this team day in and day out, and some days they play unbelievably well, right? And they play as a unit. And a top player like Barzal goes down, they play the same. Like I don't really see a lot of variability when guys go in and out. Dobson gets hurt, so they play, in my opinion, the same like caliber play. But then where the mental part comes in is that, like, some days they just are hungry. They are out there. They're digging for pucks. They are, like, you could just tell they are motivated. And you and I are in the business world, right? Like, you could see when people in the workplace are like, when they're interested in doing what they're doing,
Sure.
and then
Well,
we
it's
work
like
with people
else.
and they'll be like, what is this guy even doing here? Like,
Right.
that's what I see with this team. And some days it's just like, man, they are sloppy and they play like they don't care.
So
Yeah.
So what do you think, Joe? I mean, do you think is that on the, usually when you see a motivation issue, it's on the coaching staff or the head coach. But personally, my personal opinion is this team has been like that ever since Barry Trotz left. They've changed the coaching around. I think Patrick Roy has done a pretty good job so far of keeping heads above water to a certain extent. But I think your analogy with the psychiatry is kind of right. It's actually pretty funny. They're enigmatic. It's an enigma with these guys. I'm still trying to figure out. It's one of the reasons why we're having so many people on, and why we're doing this whole podcast. But what do you your personal opinion? What do you attribute it to?
I like Patrick Roy as a coach. Like, to me, I guess some of these things you have a different. I get exposed to different parts of this team, right? I guess give me the ability to form different opinions. I'll give you a couple of examples. Earlier this year, I was at the Islanders golf outing, the fundraiser golf outing.
Oh yeah,
so
that's always a good time.
I had Oliver Wahlstrom in my foursome, who by the way was he still is, but not with the team anymore. But he's my son's age. He's a kid, right?
Yeah.
Some of these other guys, but I met and talked with Patrick Roy. Really great guy. Says the right things. You feel like the team has, like is into that. So I don't know if I blame it on that, or I just, sometimes this is an internal thing, right? It's easy to blame the coach, but like motivation comes from within. Like, if you want to blame it on a coach, that's fine. But like, these guys are professionals. Like, they make a lot of money. They need to be self-motivated. And that's the part that I see just varies. Another thing what's back to being a season ticket, they call it a season ticket member. It just sounds so awful to me. Like, to me, it's
like you're part of an elite club or something.
I don't like it. But as a season ticket member, as the Islanders call it, they open, like, they've had these great events the past couple of years where the players come out and they talk to you like people, right? They address the crowd. People aren't talking about hockey, right? They're talking about, what movies do you like? What are you doing? What do you spend time with? And you get to know these people. So whether getting to know them one-on-one at like the golf thing or seeing them, and what you start to put together is that these are just regular people, right? They happen to play hockey well. And I don't know. I don't want to blame the coaching staff, man. I think that that's not it, but I can't put my finger on it either.
I don't think so either. I think this team was built for a different speed back in the Trotz era, which wasn't too long ago. It sounds like, it's a long time ago, but it's not. And also, this team is old. This is the fourth oldest team in the NHL, and you've got a lot of guys that are just set in their ways. And I think that's a good point that you're bringing up about the internal want and need from the players to really get out there and self-motivate. I don't know. I mean, I think that's where it is. I think that there are some guys on this team, some players that are worth holding on to because of their age and their skill level, and that you could kind of rebuild around, kind of a retool. But I think there is a major need to kind of have a big say into the personnel that they have on the ice. I just think him stepping in the way he stepped in, halfway through the season, was that last year? Taking over a team that was built for Barry Trotz, that was buying into the Trotz system, that was failed by his successor, and then really trying to make it work. I think it's not working, and I just don't think they have the horses. I think Rod does a good job of keeping these guys. I think he did a good job of putting a system in place that helps them kind of move the puck better than they did, previously. But I think he needs to have his guys in there, and I think it's time to do that, or find another way to go. I mean, that's kind of where I'm thinking.
Well, but I agree with that. But then you have the schizophrenic nature of this team. Like I said, I think everything you said is accurate. But when you watch a game or two and you're like, who are these guys? Like, they don't look slow. The passes are crisp and on the tape, and they're moving like, and you're like, this is what, so they're capable of doing it. Like, I think it's easy. Remember, there's only one Stanley Cup winner, right? So you have all of the other fans of all the other teams that will be like, that's wrong. This is great. This is great. But, like, I don't know, if you just look at things that go by, and I don't want to endorse Lou Lamoriello, but I could sort of understand his perspective, right? He's tried to create this family environment where players know that if they come there, they can live on Long Island and work with the club for a long time. And, it's not transactional. There are some teams out there that when they move players in and out, they don't win the Stanley Cup either, right? A lot of the fans,
that's a good point.
Yeah. I mean, I love reading all the comments. Like, I think everybody goes to social media mostly for the comments, right? You want to see, there's so much junk, man. People you can never do anything right if you're these guys, unless you win. And there's only one team that wins. But I'd like for them just to find that fire that they show. But now, full stop there. I do think that they need to make there needs to be a couple moves that are made.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think, this, like I said, this is still basically the team that they put together in 2019, that Lou doubled down on, after the 2 trips to the semis during the bubble seasons. And I think the time has passed. And I think a lot of these guys have aged and are not as productive, particularly their secondary scoring. I think some of the moves he made, like bringing in Horvat, he's a young enough guy that you can build around. He can eventually be a captain, right?
Best player on the team. By the way, day in and day
absolutely.
out.
I totally agree with you. Totally agree with you, Joe. He's the only guy that I could say that he's worth watching pretty much every game when he's out there, all game long, because the rest of these guys, like you said, are schizophrenic in their play. So that said,
by the way, another. So that's a Lamoriello move.
Yep.
Romanov is another great pickup, man. He's exciting to watch. He's not making a lot of mistakes. He's always in the play. He's not quite a Kasparaitis level physical player, but like everybody wants to knock Lamoriello, but he's made a couple of really good moves. Now he's made some not so great moves either. But
I was going to step in and say the same thing, right? So he has, right? And picking up Horvat was a good pickup. Was trying to figure out what he was thinking when he picked him up, though. Another first round pick that went away 4 years in a row, no first round pick. They have depending on who you read, I think the Athletic had the Islanders ranked at 27th or 28th. So depending on who you read, their farm system is 27th to 28th. It's in the bottom third of the league, maybe the bottom 10 always. So where do you go from here? He's created a rather crazy situation now that most teams don't usually find them in if they're run properly, if you ask me. Yeah. One, you've got an old team that is barely making the playoffs, and if they do make the playoffs, they're out in the first round, second round, and they're not a real contender. Nobody takes them too seriously because of the talent level. Two, you've got a farm system that is devoid of real top tier talent. And you've got a situation, a cap situation with the salaries that puts you at the very top of the salary cap, where you don't have a lot of room to bring in maybe a big name to get that first round exit becoming more of a contender in the playoffs. So what do? Typically when the team is at this point, you're going to say, well, okay, well, we've got a couple of guys who are, our top, our last few first round picks, and they're developing well, or second round, whatever they are, our top prospects. We're going to bring them up. We're going to get as much talent as we can for the guys that we have. Sell them off the trade deadline or whatever before they become free agents, and we're going to rebuild. This team doesn't have that to build around. What you do have, like I said before, is you have a core of some young players that like Barzal and Horvat and Romanov and Sorokin and a few other guys, right? So maybe, Holmstrom's another guy. So maybe you start thinking about all these other guys that you can get what you can, lower your salary cap, get some talent and rebuild that farm system, and then hope within 3 to 4 years you got an exciting team. Because honestly, this team has been tough to watch, even when they were, in my opinion, they haven't been a very entertaining team, even when they were winning with Trotz. They played a very Devils early 2000s, late 90s Devils system, a lot of defense first. It was great. Good to see them win. I want to see some scoring. I want to see these guys be more exciting and have some more offense.
Right, but all right. So I don't disagree, right? And I do think people, not even Islander fans, all fans are forever hopeful, right? But like everything you just described, you can apply to almost every single team with some level of unhappiness, right? So like you got a team like the crosstown rivals, the most hated, the Rangers, right? They're getting JT Miller. They're doing this. Like they're in the same spot. You have other teams that have great farm systems. They're not winning either. You have teams that do everything you just said, but there's only one team that wins the Stanley Cup. That's it. And you have a fan base of each of those other teams that are going to micromanage. I look at it as a season ticket holder in that you want to get to know the players. Like I said to you, I feel like I've gotten to know them as not as people, but like more as human beings than other things, right? You want a quality product. Could it be better? Of course, it can always be better, right? It's never going to be okay. There will always be shows like this, like others that are like, that was the wrong move. But I just look at it and say, I don't see anything wrong about competing for a playoff spot and eking in. Like you don't think the St. Louis Blues fans were saying, 3 or 4 years ago, like they were the worst team in hockey, right? They were literally the worst team in hockey. They won the Stanley Cup that year, right? So I don't know. I'm okay with but there does need to be some changes. I'm not saying damn Pat.
I get what you're saying, Joe. And look, if they make the playoffs, I'm going to root for them. And I'm not saying I'm not rooting for my team. I'm just saying that, yeah, okay, the St. Louis Blues fans were happy, but they were miserable before and they're miserable now. There's always one team that wins the cup, right? But there are usually 5 or 6 teams. there's 5 or 6 teams, right? Usually that are in it, continually, right? So you have your teams that are constantly, look at it like your teams like Chicago and LA from just a couple of years ago, how they were continually in it. They won a few cups here and there, there was a lot of consistency for a long time. So the teams, even though even though there's one team that wins it, those teams, it's rare. It's very rare that type of a team doesn't have a good farm system, doesn't have a top 6 forward, who's an elite player in the league, and is one of the oldest teams. You know what I'm saying? What I'm saying is, I think I'd like to see them get on a program where they're building for continued success and have a different approach to their style of play that's a little bit more entertaining. That's my point.
So let me, and I've read the same things you have in terms of quality of the farm system. But as you know, Ray, my oldest son went to Boston University, right?
Yep.
No football team, no hockey program there is big, right?
It's hockey's everything at BU.
So they're in they've been in the Frozen Four the past couple of years. I've been to a couple of bean pots with my son, but to relate it to the Islanders, and I still watch, he graduated last year, but I'm still watching lots of BU hockey. Shane LeChance on that team too, by the way, who is Scott LeChance's son. He's one of the captains. But more importantly, you have Cole Iserman, Camille Bednarik are both on that team. They're number one, the college hockey level is really high. Like, you watch that game and it's a high level. So this isn't like AAA, single A, baseball type of analogy, right? This is like a very quality product they put on the ice. And those two players are great, right? They picked Cole Iserman middle of the first round, right? Bednarik was either a second or third round pick. So everything's a crapshoot, right? You trade for everyone wants a Butch Goring trade, right? Everybody's looking for yes, we're going to trade, we're going to trade Brock Nelson, and we're going to get, all this stuff in return, and everything's going to be better. But for every one of those trades, you have a Chris Osgood trade, right? Where, like, in the early 2000s, they were like, well, this guy's not, and they traded him away for nothing, and he won Stanley Cups after that, right? So even making these deals. Now, that said, I do think, unless Brock Nelson signs an extension, you have to move him, right? With the Tavares debacle and all that, you can't not move him because he's not coming back. Same thing with Palmieri. Like, I like these players. If they stay and they sign reasonable extensions, that's fine with me. To me, though, honestly, and this is where it gets it's sort of anti what you're talking about. Like, I watch Noah Dobson play. Ray, he's terrible. He's terrible. He's terrible. And I'm
just so you know, guys, I think every time I see Joe at a game, I hear this, and I'm not disagreeing with him, but I know it's definitely something on the front of Joe's mind pretty much every time he watches a game.
And everybody, but listen, he's a nice kid. I met him at the golf outing, right? He's a kid. He's like, same thing. He's like not much older than Wally was, right? And people keep talking, well, Devon Tays, they traded, and look how that worked out, and look at it. But, like, I feel that's more of a change. But, and for what it's worth, look at all these different players that they move in on the defense. It's like a revolving door on the defense.
Well, as everybody keeps getting hurt.
Nothing changes. They're not like giving up goals at an alarming rate. They're not like it's the system that they have is good. So if you can get something for Dobson, in my opinion, you get it. You go take it.
Outside of the guys I named before, if you're going for a retool, right? Outside of the 4 or 5 guys I named before, but even those guys, anybody is open game, because if you got a chance to move somebody and make the team better, why not? Dobson, I think the problem with Dobson, I think he's a talented player. I think he was overrated on the ratings scale when they made the decision to let Tays go instead of him. But I think he's still a talented enough player, but he's not your number one defenseman guy to be running the power play. He's a good number two guy. They need to find somebody if they really want to improve that power play, improve their offense, and become a better team. They need to find a real power play quarterback, offensive defenseman, and then if they have a guy like Dobson as the number two guy, then they're in very good shape.
Ray,
And then
let me tell you, he can't play defense. That's the problem, though. He's a defenseman that can't play defense. So unless you're 100-point a year guy, like you're not, he doesn't. I rather risk. I'll tell you another more a little bit more controversial take than that. There's no drop off on the team that I noticeably see when Barzal's in and out of the lineup. Like it's
I
not
agree.
like they don't have a guy. Like say what you want about Horvat, you and I like him, but man, he has a scorer's mentality, right? Like he is constantly looking for that big shot. Barzal, I feel like he gets paid. He thinks he gets paid by the pirouette, right? Like he's out there, like, and he's trying to be some, like to me,
he's got to go to the
market. If there was a market for him, and I know these guys have no trade clauses, some of them have 16 teams, but to me personally, if he was to be moved to shake things up, I would have no problem with it.
And like I said, I mean, he's definitely, from a talent perspective, on the team that you already have, he's definitely somebody that could be worth holding on to be part of a core to build around. But you're right, and anybody, like I said, is open game on this team. He is frustrating to watch sometimes because he does not go to the front of the net. He gets nice breaks, he can skate around people, and then instead of getting dirty, he goes around the net and looks to pass it, looks to wrap it around, looks to stop and wait for somebody to come up. It is frustrating. At the end of the day, though, if you look at his numbers, the guy gets you about 20 goals a year. He gets you about 30, 40 assists. And he's a productive guy on a team that doesn't produce much offensively. So, again, I totally agree with you. So we're kind of getting into, and you kind of dragging me into what I was going to ask you, what I was going to ask you, and is, what do you do now with this team? If you're, and you got to, I'm going to say, just give me your gut feeling. If put on your GM hat, if you're Lou Lamoriello, looking at this team and all of the stuff we just talked about and all the guys and whatever, what do? Your three options really are stand pat, right? Double down, re-sign these two guys, Palmieri and Nelson, and bring in some higher level talent that you can stick under your cap and try to push forward. You retool around a core bunch of players, or you do what God did with the dinosaurs. You wipe everybody out and you start all over again with the guys you feel are the best in your system if they're ready. So what does GM Joe Lucatorto do with this team?
And not what I think is going to happen. What would I do?
What would you do?
Yeah, because I think I know what they would do. They like standing pat and keeping the family together.
Yeah, but that's no fun to talk about, right? So
yeah. That's what it'll probably
happens.
happen. But what would I do? I like what you said earlier. I agree with it in having a bit of a faster game, right? Like picking up the speed, getting a little quicker. Guys like JG Pageau, he's entertaining to watch. He's out there. He also has trade value. But you
doesn't score goals anymore. Doesn't score goals anymore.
You got to look at maybe try and see. Here's the downside is some of these contracts. In order to get rid of it, the cap is going up next year, by the way, for the next couple of years.
It is. That might give us a different situation to look at. But go ahead.
You can afford to extend a couple of these guys and spend a couple more dollars than you would. But like I think like Engvall was a mistake at this point, right? He's got a fairly chunk of a contract. I don't know if I would have signed, Mayfield for as long either, right? Great player, great person
totally
as well, right? Military family and good people these folks are. But so you got to remember, in order to get better, you need to trade a Brock Nelson, and what you get in return is that they also take Pierre Engvall. That's it. Like, so you get nothing in return, and that might be considered a win.
Addition by subtraction.
Yeah. But so there needs to be a little, not that trade literally, but like there needs to be these deals that have to go on where are you gonna focus on the cap and try to get free agents in? Are you gonna try to? But I just don't know if that. Back to what I said before, it's like a lot of that is a big crapshoot, man. Like you need to bring in the right group. So back to your question, what would I do? I would trade the Noah Dobson. Clearly, he has trade value. What you get in return is up for grabs. But some of these, guys that they've brought in, I think they played pretty well. Give them a chance. And like I said, there's been no noticeable drop in the defense when Dobson's been out. Nothing, zero. If anything, it's gotten better, right? I also feel, and I think I typed it in the chat room. Your brother has, is that everything is hinging on what Brock Nelson does, right? Like they're trying to extend him from what I've read and things that I've seen. And I think if he wants to stay, you got to let him stay, right? He'll end up he does 3 more years. He becomes one of the longest tenured Islanders. He becomes an Islander.
Let me stop you right there, though. So, okay, if he wants to stay, what's wrong with trading him for something at the deadline and re-signing them in the offseason as a free agent?
Yeah, I don't think it works as much. That's an option. It's an option.
It's the best of both worlds, isn't it?
Yeah, I think if he wants to stay, they'll work out a deal. If he doesn't want to stay, he's not coming back.
What's your overall approach though as a GM? I mean, what would you do? So you would try to get rid of some overhead, open up some cap space, keep as many of the best guys as you can, and maybe bring in some higher level talent.
I am not a draft pick guy, right? There's just so much of a crapshoot on the draft. Like I'm not personally a draft. So to me, trading established players for draft picks is like, I don't know. Now getting something rather than them leaving is better. But I like the approach of going out, trading a couple of these guys for some younger players that could, maybe the value is not the same initially, but they have upside and, they can contribute to the team and they work well in the locker room. I think that sort of deal is fine. But to me, if I was the GM, I would be looking to move Barzal and Noah Dobson, which is those are big names, right? And those are Ledecky type of favorites, right? Like he likes putting a consistent product out there. He likes this family atmosphere. That sort of blows that up. But that's to me what I would be looking to do first.
Yeah, I'm not really one for consistent. I like consistency, but I don't like consistently mediocre, and that's what I think this team has been. They've been consistently mediocre. But very interesting take on a lot of different things from Joe, particularly the state of the team and where they could possibly go. I think, Joe, you had said it earlier. There's a lot of different ways this can go. It's going to be pretty interesting to see what happens with the trade deadline coming up very quickly. And you're right. Once we see what happens with Nelson, I think we'll understand which way Lou wants to go. And like they used to call Lou the Fog because he kind of hangs around and doesn't tell anybody what's going on, and that's just the way he is. So we'll see what happens with that. And listen, we'll take it from there. Our next show, and when we get to our previews, is going to be more around that, and what's seeing what happens at the trade deadline, and taking some conjecture at where the team's going. But always interesting to have season ticket holders on, guys with diehard fans who are really passionate about the team like Joe. So Joe, thanks for coming on, and hope to have you back real soon.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, Ray.
All right, you got it.